to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025, there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Sunday edition. Faye, Carruthers and Henry Winter keeping you company this morning and running our eye over some of the biggest stories of the week. We have a cracking 2 hours planned for you. So much to get stuck into, including the news that's just breaking that Sheffield United have sacked manager Ruben Sellers just 5 games into the championship season. We had planned on discussing whether it's too early to talk about sacking managers with the number under pressure already. Seems not. We'll focus on the situation at Sheffield Wednesday as well and preview the Manchester derby. Talk about this morning's fight in Las Vegas with Terence Crawford's stunning win over Canelo Alvarez. It's 20 years as well since that famous 2005 Ashes win for England. Steve Harmison's going to be with us to share some of his memories of that incredible test series. Plus, we'll be speaking to the president of the Enhanced Games, Aaron D'Souza. You can get in touch with the show, text us on 81089. You can WhatsApp us or call us as well on 03717 223344. A reminder, we're also live on YouTube and your smart TV. You just need to search talksport.com/watch for more details. This is the Sunday edition on TalkSport. Good morning, Henry.
Morning, Faye.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm even more delighted. Sean's off on another of his holidays. Newcastle win, so we probably won't see him for a couple of months. So, no, it's brilliant.
Yeah, delight to be with you.
Yeah, brilliant. I normally only see you when you're just sort of chasing stories with England footballers and managers.
Racing around St George's Park, usually, with deadlines left, right and centre.
Yeah, but a nice quiet start for the show.
Obviously, look, normally we would go through the headlines on the back pages. We will do that in a minute, but we've got some breaking news first and foremost, with talkSPORT understanding that Ruben Sellers has been sacked as Sheffield United manager. Chris Wilder, apparently, would be open to a shock return to his former club. Question marks over whether he should have left in the first place.
Well, that's down to the owners. I thought he did, fantastically well in a ridiculously competitive division. So I imagine the fans, just having a quick look at some of the fans' forums, they're slightly split. A lot of them would like Wilder back because he knows the club. He's passionate about the club. He shouldn't have gone in the first place. But obviously the squad's changed slightly. Do they need a younger manager? Personally, I think they need a Chris Wilder in that.
Maybe a little bit of steadying the ship. Let's hear what our talkSPORT football correspondent, chief football correspondent, to give him his full title. Sorry, Crookie. Alex Crook has to say on it. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to a lay-by off the A34. This is what we do when we get breaking news on talkSPORT.
I love this. Sitting in his car, Alex Crook, bringing us all the headlines. What do you know so far? Are they going to confirm it anytime soon?
Well, nothing official yet from Sheffield United, but I've spoken to sources close to Ruben Sellers. It's my understanding that they have sacked their manager at Sheffield United, as you say, just 5 championship games into the season, 6 defeats in 6 in all competitions, if you include the League Cup. And it was difficult, wasn't it, to see any other outcome after that chastening 5-0 thrashing against Ipswich live on talkSPORT 2 on Friday. I have a little bit of sympathy for Ruben Sellers because I feel like he was doomed to failure in this job. He went from finishing 4th bottom of the championship, just about keeping Hull safe on the last day of last season, to taking over from a really popular manager who'd only narrowly missed out on promotion in a championship playoff final. It was a baffling decision in my mind to get rid of Chris Wilder in the first place. He got 90 points last season, and they were really good for most of that championship playoff final before Sunderland rallied late on. So as I say, I think it was always going to be a difficult ask for Ruben Sellers. I think he would say that maybe he wasn't backed as much in the transfer market as he'd been promised. And as you've said, Faye, we reported this yesterday on talkSPORT. Nothing should surprise you in football, but maybe reality really is stranger than fiction. Chris Wilder would be open, I'm told, to returning to Bramall Lane for a 3rd spell in charge.
Yeah, 3rd spell. That is quite incredible when somebody is linked with a club like that and feels like the heartbeat of a club like Sheffield United as well. It does make you question why they parted company with him in the first place. And why did they think that Ruben Sellers was the man to kick them on when he quite clearly isn't?
Well, I think they wanted to go in a different direction. They wanted a younger coach. We know all about the AI technology that they've been using to scout players, although even that seemed to go out the window towards the end of the transfer summer. I don't think necessarily Danny Ings would have been an AI signing, with no disrespect at all to the brilliant career that he's had. So I think what we're seeing from Sheffield United is new owners who've come in clearly with the intention of making them competitive at the top of the championship, but just not having the football now to back up those ambitions. And if Chris Wilder does go back, and I think he's going to want certain promises, I would expect a new director of football, maybe even one that Wilder picks himself, to be in situ so that this club can start to move again in the right direction. Because as much as I do sympathise with Ruben Sellers, the squad of players they've got are still better than 6 defeats out of 6 and losing 5-0 away from home.
Crookie, is this another example of fan power? Because it was pretty sort of unanimous the way they turned on him on Friday night.
Yeah, and again, I think he's been battling against a lot of the Sheffield United fans since his appointment, because many of them did not want Chris Wilder to go. And maybe not just the fans, Henry, you know what football dressing rooms are like. I think there's a lot of people in that dressing room who probably were loyal to Chris Wilder. They probably felt he was harshly treated, and therefore Ruben Sellers would have had a job getting them on side as well. So as I say, if you put all these elements together, it was a really difficult job. And he does pick difficult jobs, Ruben Sellers. He went in at Southampton after Nathan Jones when they were pretty much already doomed to relegation. Obviously, he was firefighting at Reading when there was a distinct possibility the club might go out of business completely, and did a decent job there. He went to Hull. That's not an easy football club to run either. And then he's decided to replace a very popular figure at Sheffield United. So you can't question that he's got the stomach for a fight, but unfortunately this is a fight that he didn't win.
Maybe we'll see him at Hillsborough next in that case, or Rangers.
Well, you say that, by the way. Let me just say this. One of the names that I've mentioned that's been mentioned to me, the Sheffield United hierarchy at Maya, is Danny Roll, the former Sheffield Wednesday manager. Now, I'm told he would be reluctant to take that job because of the rivalry. But again, maybe that just tells you about these new owners that perhaps that they're not aware of exactly what running Sheffield United entails. The fact they would even entertain the idea of appointing a former Sheffield Wednesday boss.
Fascinating. I'm sure we'll hear more from you on it. Safe Jenny, I presume you're heading up to Manchester, Crookie, for the derby later on. We'll be discussing that later. Thank you very much. talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, there from a lay-by on his way up north. Fascinating. Look, we were going to focus on managers, and we are going to throughout the show, Henry, because one of our discussions outside leading into today's show was whether it's too early to sack a manager. Clearly not.
No, and owners are impatient, fans are impatient. I mean, it's partly social media, the sort of, the churn and the reaction. Does social media always reflect the views of match-going fans is another debating point. But I just think Ruben Selles, I mean, sometimes his strongest ability is his availability.
Mm-hmm.
He is there. He obviously interviews well. He's quite a sort of almost charismatic individual. And Crookie's right. What he did at Reading, he did a decent job. 34 wins in 78 games in very difficult circumstances, given all the sort of turmoil at the top of the club. The fans sort of respected him and, how he fought for them. But I don't know, he's not Chris Wilder. He's not got... Chris Wilder has just Sheffield United in his blood. He just understands it. He fights for it. So it was a crazy decision to get rid of him. But the owners will be having to swallow a little bit of pride if they do reappoint him.
Yep, absolutely they will. Right, what's on the back pages that's caught your eye this morning?
Obviously, the back pages, and Sean as a sports editor, there's no way he would have been able to get the sort of boxing in. But I mean, I'm sure the newspapers and as talkSPORT are doing, you've had Gareth A. Davis on from Vegas, just sort of talking about Crawford's, and is he one of the greatest of this era, one of the greatest of all times? What's his future going to be? I think he's sort of 35, 36. Will he continue? So that is absolutely a debate which will continue for some time. In terms of the newspapers, I mean, you just saw, Voltemada, who is, he's a very charismatic striker. Is he a 10? Is he a 9? A bit of both. Maybe he's a sort of 9.5. The Mail on Sunday, Craig Hope, who knows St James's Park and Newcastle United inside out, and actually did a very good YouTube video, which is worth looking at, on Isak. And Craig's headline is "Who Needs Isak?" Toon's new hero, Voltemada, feels the fans' love on dream debut. He actually scored a sort of classic number 9 goal with that, terrific header, but also his link-up play. He can work as a 10. England actually, the under-21s kept him, very quiet. Kwanzaa and Creswell out at the when England beat Germany in the under-21s final this summer. So, but yeah, I mean, who needs Isak? Everyone needs Isak.
Well,
that's why the best team in the country, Liverpool, went for Isak. So that will run and run. Paul Hayward, The Observer. I mean, Paul knows racing inside out, and it's a column, but for me, it's also an important news story, one that talkSPORT's been covering very, very well this week because of the significance of the news story. Arguably the most important story one of the most important stories in sport at the moment, which is about this additional tax. To put it very simply, additional tax that the government are considering bringing in, and racing, quite rightly, have been pointing out, this is a tax on online betting, have been pointing out what the industry of racing does for the country in terms of employment, not simply sort of jockeys and trainers, but, with vets, with stable hands, just everyone that will be, as Paul rightly points it out, for once the sport united to resist the threat of a ruinous tax increase. And he is right. And he said, there have been strikes, some races haven't gone ahead. And as Paul puts it, the hooves fell silent while industry names flooded into Westminster to urge the Treasury not to tax online betting on horse racing at the same rate as digital casinos and other games of chance. And look, we love going to the races. It is a fantastic day. And I just don't understand the logic. I know they're trying to sort of nick a few quid here and there. That's what the Exchequer does. But the long-term damage economically could be considerable, as well as obviously the damage to one of our greatest sports. So I hope the government think again, and at the very least read Paul Hayward's very good column on page 3 of The Observer. Very quickly, Big Ange. in the Sunday Times.
You know I hate that.
Yeah, I know. I did. That's why I mentioned it.
I know.
Why do you hate it? Because he's not big, or it's belittling,
he's not our mate. I just find it weird.
But he always calls everyone mate. So
yeah, no, I know.
Mates.
I know.
It's who we are, mate. Anyway, just very quickly, front page of the Sunday Times sports pull out. I only need days to bring my style to Forest, says Big Ange, your mate Big Ange. I mean, it will take a bit more than a couple of training sessions and getting ready for Wednesday to bring his style in, because we know what his style is. It is open, it's high press, it's attacking. He's not necessarily got a squad that was built for that. Obviously, they brought in one or two players who might work along those lines, but, it's going to take him a bit of time.
Yeah. Mate. This is the Sunday edition on talkSPORT. We are going to talk about Postecoglou next. He's back in the Premier League. Really tough start for him against Arsenal, but he has his work cut out, as we knew he would do. This is talkSPORT. This is the Sunday edition on talkSPORT. Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you this morning. Lovely to have your company. A reminder of the breaking news we brought you at 9 o'clock here on talkSPORT. Sheffield United have sacked head coach Ruben Selles after Friday's 5-0 defeat at Ipswich. Just 5 games into the championship season. He's lost all 6 games that he's been in charge of. And he wasn't the first manager to lose his job this season. We will get full confirmation on that, by the way. That has talkSPORT sources as it stands. But Nuno Espirito Santo was the first manager to go after a falling out with Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis. And of course his replacement was former Tottenham boss Ange Postecoglou, and it wasn't the fairy tale return to the Premier League that he would have hoped for. His side comfortably beaten 3-0 by Arsenal at the Emirates in the live game on talkSPORT on Saturday lunchtime, and he spoke to talkSPORT's Sam Matterface after the game.
I love being back. I love that probably everyone will be writing me off again. I love the fight, mate, and I'm up for it, so let's get it on.
He loves the fight, mate, Henry. I mean, he must do, for sure. I'm pleased to see him back very soon. He's such a character in the game. Whenever I've interviewed him, he's always been really personable. Gets a little bit defensive at times when you're interviewing him, but was under immense pressure at Tottenham Hotspur. He did bring the trophy that he promised he would do. What's he going to bring to Nottingham Forest, and how difficult is his task?
Just one thing on how you found interviewing him as a broadcaster. Was there eye contact?
Yes, to begin with. Pre-match, he's so lovely, really polite, really engaged. He doesn't like losing, and that's very apparent. And there's lots of players, lots of managers. Nobody
had lots of it last season.
And he did, unfortunately, have lots of it. However, he's very defensive when the question is. He automatically assumes that the question you're asking him is an attack, and he immediately goes on the defensive. And I interviewed him after the defeat, funnily enough, to Nottingham Forest at the City Ground on Boxing Day last year. And actually it was a brilliant performance, much better Spurs performance than we'd seen earlier on in the season. This was the period, if you remember, where they had a string of injuries, having had that really good start. And I'd asked him a really generic question that he could have chosen to answer in any way he wanted, and he chose to answer it on the defensive immediately and bit at me straight away. And it was the week or the 2 weeks leading into it had been where he felt certain sections of the press had been going at him and almost poking him.
Was that the clown week?
Yeah, it was the clown week, I think.
So where is the balance between chippiness and defiance? Because defiance is great. Chippiness hints at maybe an insecurity. I'm not saying that's necessarily with him, because he's achieved a lot in his life, overcome a lot of adversity. You know, you look at, how he sort of settled in Australia and sort of grew up there, and the issues that he had to overcome. But how did you find that? Did you think it was chippiness or just simple defiance?
I don't know. It's always really difficult. Post-match interviews, flash interviews, as they're described, which is straight off the pitch, effectively. Yeah. I always really feel sorry for players and managers, particularly after a defeat. Great after a win, you've got the adrenaline rush. When you've got that adrenaline rush and it's negative, it's really difficult to snap yourself out of that quickly, which is why I think we see some of these antagonistic kind of responses from some managers and some players when they're questioned. They need to process that defeat first and foremost before they then articulate it to the wider public, and that's tough to do. So I have empathy because I'm an empathetic person.
Yeah, you are.
But lots of people use it as we can get something out of this. We can poke this. But I would say, having watched a lot of Ange Postecoglou's post-match interviews, a lot of the time he's not being poked and he reacts as if he's being poked, and I think that's where it's difficult, because then we start to stray, and certainly some reporters that I've spoken to have found him quite rude, and whether, as I say, whenever I've met him, he's been really personable, a real joy to be around, and somebody who you can, I think, have a bit of a laugh with if he's in that kind of mood. Just tough after a defeat. Yeah,
but I've often found that the best managers, the elite managers, are the ones who are best in defeat. So Sir Alex Ferguson would come out, the sort of the greatest manager, along with Pep, that we've had in this country in the last sort of 30 odd years. He would come in after a defeat and would just talk, just breathe defiance. It was the ball, it was the referee, it was the defeat was down to the press, the weather, the colour of the strip. And I loved that. And I always used to sort of go into his press conferences in defeat because I just loved the way he was the sort of lightning rod, which was protecting the players. I don't like signs of insecurity in a manager in defeat. I think that's when you actually throw out all the sort of hand grenades and actually sort of circle the wagons. How many more cliches do you want? Just in terms of sort of standing up for it. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, look, he's got Swansea in midweek. That's not going to be so easy. With his style, it's going to take a few more days than just getting it right for Wednesday.
Patience, I think. But, you know, we were talking...
Patience in football?
I know. Well, listen, I've got a bit more breaking news for you on that, actually, because we brought you the news that Ruben Sellers had parted ways with Sheffield United. We're actually hearing talkSPORT sources suggesting that Chris Wilder is set to return to Sheffield United, which Alex Crook, our chief football correspondent, mentioned earlier on. I mean, that is some turnaround, isn't it? So
I would imagine the majority of Sheffield United fans listening to Crookie earlier in his studio on a lay-by somewhere heading north. First, he started the Mexican wave with the news that Ruben Sellers has gone, and it's probably just sort of intensified the possibility or the likelihood of Chris Wilder coming back.
Amazing. But he has that same kind of task. Ruben Amorim is another manager under pressure who we'll speak about very shortly. But we're then at that stage with Ruben Sellers, similar to Nuno leaving Nottingham Forest. He was so popular, hugely popular for what he's achieved with Forest, and Ange Postecoglou has to come in and, you know, imprint his style. Is he the man to bring silverware to the City ground? Well, mate, he says he is, and almost the implication from Marinakis was the expectation, and certainly sort of reading a lot of sort of the pieces like sort of John Percy and the Telegraph, people like that the expectation was that he would win a trophy in his first season at Nottingham Forest. I mean, is he an upgrade on Nuno? I mean, personally, I would debate that. He will be an upgrade if he finishes 6th and above. I mean, Nuno did a great job in getting them to 7th. Obviously, they faded a bit, but what they had, 2 players, Wood and Sels, in the PFA Team of the Year, which was celebrated a couple of weeks ago. So obviously, Nuno, helped them achieve that. And then if you look at the England squad, you look at Elliot Anderson. He's been a fantastic player since Wallsend Boys Club, since Bristol Rovers, since Newcastle United, and obviously with Forest. But he developed under Nuno. And I think we should give Nuno credit for that. So, look, I'm a bit biased. I really like Nuno as an individual as well as a manager. And I think he should not have spoken out against Marinakis. To speak out against your boss is naive, but particularly an individual like Marinakis. So, yeah, I wish... Big Ange, big luck. Big Ange, big luck. Love that. Thank you, Henry. Coming up next here on Sunday Edition, we are going to ask which managers are under some serious pressure. Shock, quite a few of them. Sunday edition on talkSPORT. Very good morning to you, Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you on this Sunday morning. Scaramouche after that headline from Hugo. I thought that was very impressive. But the music on, Henry, is Oasis.
But first, the countdown is on. This is your chance to win £25,000 and tickets to see Oasis at Wembley on Saturday the 27th of September 2025. This Friday, we're calling 2 lucky listeners on air. Will go head-to-head for the cash. Both will score the tickets, but only one will walk away with 25 grand. Listen up, here's how you can enter.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word Oasis to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 338. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Henry, the last time I was on with you on the Sunday edition, I was trying to get tickets for Oasis. I managed to get them.
Brilliant.
Best gig ever.
Definitely?
Maybe. No, there's no maybe.
Definitely.
There's no maybe with it. It's 100% definitely.
Why?
It was fabulous. The little walk down memory lane, the nostalgia. I literally experienced every single emotion during the show. Richard Ashcroft surprised me. I wasn't a massive Verve Richard Ashcroft fan but honestly, listening to some of that music, we got there a little bit later than I wanted, so I missed Cast, which I was gutted about because I used to love Cast. But it was fully incredible. The range of emotions. I cried, I laughed, I danced, I sang my heart out. It was amazing. I was very gutted though. I missed cigarettes and alcohol, ironically, because I went to go and get alcohol. And I missed the Poznan. I came down with a tray of cider, having missed the Poznan.
Just don't look back in anger.
No, I'll try not to.
But in terms of Liam's voice, everyone says it's extraordinary.
Just everything about it was extraordinary. I didn't feel... And I'd been to see them back in the early noughties when Liam's voice was ropey at times, and I'd seen them in smaller venues, and it had... But this was just... They were... fantastic, and fingers crossed, Nebworth actually comes off next year, because I went to Nebworth in '96 and it was amazing.
So you're going to go Nebworth again?
I hope so, yeah, if I can get tickets, without a doubt. And I would have gone back again at the end of September for their last 2 Wembley dates, but I'm actually working and busy, so I can't go, which I'm gutted, but I'd happily have gone back again.
Obviously, a lot of your life revolves around Oasis. Would you like to see them back in the studio for another album?
Yeah, I would. But do you know what? Partly, I feel like this tour has just been about the nostalgia element and where you were in the 90s and noughties when they came out.
But if they're still producing, there's no element of their individual powers having faded.
Oh, without a doubt, no way. I mean, individually they've shown that already. So collaboratively, it would be great to see them do another album together. But we shall see. Anyway, we digress because we need to talk about managers under pressure. I could talk about Oasis forever, but this isn't Virgin Radio. You can listen if you want to swipe on the app and listen to Virgin if you'd like to. But I want to talk about managers under pressure. Thomas Frank, only the 3rd Tottenham manager to win his first 2 away top flight matches in charge of the club, which is quite impressive. 3 second-half goals for Spurs at West Ham, piling the pressure on the West Ham manager, Graham Potter. He spoke to talkSPORT after the match.
We've inherited the situation. The situation is what it is. We're trying to change it with the dynamic of the team, with the connection of the team. I think against Forest, I think you saw that. We're struggling because we've had 2 games against high-class opposition in terms of where they are, in terms of how much they've invested in the team and where the quality is. But nevertheless, we have to do better. Of course we do. We want to improve.
Interesting hearing. I've got a lot of time for Graham Potter, by the way. Been lucky enough to sit down and do long form interviews with him. He's a fascinating man.
Why?
In many ways, the way he looks at the games, very intelligent. His study of it, his what he's done coming up through the ranks to then, the brilliant job that he did at Brighton, the tough time that he had at Chelsea, now here at West Ham. But I do find it difficult listening to him saying, we've had a tough time with what we've inherited.
Yeah.
It's now September 2025 and he was appointed in January. That's 9 months. So I find it difficult, and I wonder how West Ham fans feel about that. They've never been fully on board with his appointment. And I listened to the brilliant interview that you did with Baroness Karen Brady, you and Sean, on the Sunday edition a few weeks ago, gave him a big vote of confidence. But do you feel like the time is running out for him?
I mean, as you say, he's not been there that long. And in fairness to the West Ham board, they tend to be loyal to managers. I mean, look, there are issues there in terms of being a manager at a stadium like that, which is still an athletics track with the fans along, where you haven't got that not intimidation, but an element of hostility and fans right on top of the opposition, right on top of the pitch that you had at the Bowling Ground. But that's a longer term issues which other managers have had to contend with, and David Moyes did a decent job with it, got him a European trophy. I just find, maybe we look at it slightly too much through a journalistic prism, but I do find Potter, he doesn't necessarily lift me up in terms of belief. I look at him sometimes on the touchline and I think, what sort of message are you purveying to players? I mean, the best managers go through the emotions, and you could go through the sort of gears emotionally, and you can see that sometimes they're just reflective and they're watching, and then sometimes you see it with Slot. You saw it with Klopp. Sometimes they're watching, the observing, and then suddenly they'll just raise the gear, and you could just sense the players responding to that. I think Potter's got to do that. He could basically do with 10 more Jared Bowens. Bowen's been fantastic for them, and I've got a bit of sympathy for them. But yesterday was poor, and when they go behind, they tend, they have to react more.
Well, they lost Thomas Souček as well, so we have to put the caveat in there. They were 1-0 down.
That was a fair. You can't argue that.
Oh, I don't argue that without a doubt. But then they kind of folded a little bit, and this is a Thomas Frank Tottenham side that's looking really exciting.
Yeah, and a very good balance, good organisation. They've recruited well. I mean, longer term. I mean, Bergvall I thought was excellent yesterday with that header and the
first Premier League goal for him.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, there'll be plenty more because I love his sort of box to box energy. They've got strength and depth, but they've got a manager who's got that perfect combination of he's good tactically, he organises, but all he's got, to use your word, which is a really good word, he's got the sort of the empathy. You can see how players will respond to him. You can see the body language as the players are walking off the pitch. There's a sort of warmth there. They respect him as an individual, because you've interviewed Tom many times. He's a very engaging individual, and you can see why players will go that extra yard for him.
Yeah. The players not necessarily going an extra yard for Rangers boss Russell Martin. Turned on him very, very early. Turned on even more yesterday at Ibrox, losing 2-0 at home to Hearts, who are having a great start to the season themselves. 4 straight draws before that. They've got 4 points. I think they're 9th or 10th in the league, Rangers, which is not acceptable for the Rangers supporter base. They obviously were knocked out pretty embarrassingly, actually, by Club Brugge, 9-1 on aggregate as well. Doesn't help his cause at all. Will they make a decision soon, do you think?
I mean, there's no sign of progress. I mean, I was really surprised early in the season when he was critical of his players. And so he caveated that to an extent, but you can't do that to your players, particularly when you're new to them. They're not going to respond like that. And being a manager of either of the old firm clubs, you have to behave in a certain way. And the default position is defiance. The default position is belief. And if you've got Celtic fans probably chanting who came 10th in a 2-horse race, that is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, I've spent time up at Rangers and at the training ground, in under previous managers, and the power and the intensity and the longing, and when Gerrard did 55th, it's just absolutely huge. It's so powerful, you can almost reach out and touch it. It's so strong up there. And I think Russell Martin, I just don't think he must have understood what he was walking into in terms of the size of the club of Rangers and the size of the challenge against Celtic. And to make some of his comments that he did, and sometimes the tactical inflexibility, I just think it's pretty much a recipe for disaster, and I think the clock is ticking.
He backed himself at Southampton. You used the word defiance earlier on when you were describing Sir Alex Ferguson on the touchline in post-match interviews. And actually, do you think it's blind defiance and blind belief, or is he seeing something that we're not seeing?
I mean, Ferguson, at his most defiant, very, very rarely threw anyone under the bus. Whereas I think for Russell Martin to do that is such a risky game, particularly when your CV is okay, but it's not completely convincing. And I know there are a lot of people in the media who like him and support him and back him through difficult times. But the results and the performances and the fans' reaction and the body language of the players would signal that it's not working.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. We do know that Ruben Selles has parted company with Sheffield United. Looks like Chris Wilder could be coming back in to the EFL Championship club. We'll let you know a little bit more on that when we get it. This is Sunday edition on talkSPORT. And next up, a bit of a change in gear and a bit of noughties nostalgia back again as well, because it's 20 years since that incredible series between England and Australia. 20 years since the Ashes, and we're going to be joined by double Ashes winner Steve Harmison next. Good morning to you. This is the Sunday edition on talkSPORT. Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you until 11 o'clock this morning. We're also now on your smart TV as well. All you need to do, grab the app on Android TV and Google TV. That's the talkSPORT app, by the way. Or even on Prime Video as well. talkSPORT live on your screen as well as your speakers. But now we are 20 years on from perhaps the greatest series in Test cricket history.
2005. The match here is drawn. Let the celebrations begin.
Gives me goosebumps listening to that again. What a time it was. England securing a historic draw at the Oval to win the series 2-1, beating Australia in a Test series for the first time since 1987. Now we can call him talkSPORT's Steve Harmison. Took 17 wickets in the series, including that crucial wicket of Michael Kasparitz at Edgbaston. England won that Test by just 2 runs to prevent Australia from going 2-0 up in the series. And Harmy joins us now. How are you?
Good morning, Faye. Good morning, Henry.
Morning.
Lovely to see you, as always. I was taking a wonderful little trip down memory lane. I remember exactly where I was during that series. I was working up in Leeds, a music radio station. I was pretty much the only person in the building that loved sport, and I was glued to the television, but so was everybody else, which was the biggest surprise when they really didn't care at all. That is what this series brought everybody together, didn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I think it's to be obviously mentioned that it was the last series on terrestrial TV before it went to sort of pay-per-view and onto Sky. And I think the Sunday morning one at Edgbaston really sort of captivated the nation when it went down to the wire. And there was nearly 9 million people watched it on that Sunday morning. And I think from that point, I think the series just grew. It got bigger and bigger. And I don't think we really got to understand the magnitude of the series until right at the very end when we went round to the sort of open-top bus in Trafalgar Square. But I think we were protected by it a little bit. We knew it was massive. We could sense, because of the way the series was going and the ebbs and flows and the two great sides with great players going head-to-head, it was huge. But I think that morning at Edgbaston was this kickstart for the nation to get behind what is, we are now probably the greatest series ever in Test cricket.
I mean, one of the most iconic moments and photographic images was when Flintoff went over to Brett Lee. But if memory serves, you were the first to go over and console him. Did that show the sort of sporting respect between two great adversaries?
Yeah, I think, Henry, it showed the two great respect between the sport and side. It also shows the world of the media that you know, I think the other 10 players on the team could have shaked Brett Lee's hand in the same manner, but nobody wanted the picture other than Andrew Flintoff because of the way his series was going and that Test match was for Freddie. But it was, I mean, that morning, especially, Henry, you know, we talk about England and what a great series it was, and 20 years since we won it and everything. But Australia played their part. They played their part huge. And Brett Lee on that morning, he was like a voodoo doll. I think the actual morning lasted an hour and 15 minutes, of which I think I only wasn't bowling for 10 minutes of it. Freddie bowled for the whole hour and 15 minutes of it, and we hit Brett Lee on every part of his body. I mean, he ran 3 singles, I think, without his bat. I think he got hit in the ribs, he got hit in the shoulder, he got hit in the head. I mean, on the inside, that he got hit everywhere, and he stood up and he took us on. And I think that photograph was a mark of respect, not only for the series itself, but actually the duel and the contest between, you know, 2 bowlers who were going hammer and tongue, and a guy who, in Brett Lee, wasn't going to give it away for his country.
It was fascinating, wasn't it? Because, you know, the questions from the media, that some of the press conferences that Australia held, you know, they were very cocky, I think it's fair to say, going into this, expecting that it would be a whitewash, because, you know, the Australian team was one of the best in cricket. Would you say one of the best in cricket history when you look at the names on that list?
I think it was the best in cricket history. There will be people in the 70s people like Bumble will disagree and say the West Indies. Now, we always say because they had a spinner, because they had Shane Warne. And the others would argue that the West Indies had 4 great fast bowlers. They didn't need a spinner. So they are always, and I'm sure Henry and Faye, you know, when you go through, talk about, you know, football teams from the generations and which ones were the best. Going into that series, look, Faye, the Aussies are always cocky. I mean, we've got, I think, 40 days before the next Ashes series, and all you're going to hear is Australia are going to rub England's nose in it in this current series that's about to play. In that series, I don't think they were as confident and as cocky as what they usually were in the previous 20 years, because I think going into that series, the best way I've always described it, it was the best best players in the world in Australia. So Australia were undoubtedly the best players in the world. Some of the greats of all time were playing against Australia. But actually, England going into that series were the best team in the world. We had gone 18 months more or less unbeaten. We had won all 7 test matches in England the previous summer. We went to South Africa and won for the first time anybody had won in South Africa after apartheid from a visiting side. We were ready for Australia. And I think that series showed. And I think because of that, I don't think Glenn McGrath was as confident with his 5-0 predictions as he normally is.
Well, he also got injured. I was reading he got injured playing rugby and tripping over a cricket ball. Is that right?
He did. He did. It wasn't funny for Glenn. I mean, it was. I say a different word when we do the after dinner stuff. When you say you don't want to see a fellow professional get injured. I tell you what, at 9:45 that morning, that's total nonsense because. I mean, there was 10 Englishmen and a South African doing cartwheels about 45 yards away when we seen Glenn getting taken off because he was massive. You got to remember what he had just done to us at Lord's. I mean, I probably had my best day at Lord's in the series on that first morning. But by the end of the day, I think I got 5 for 43. And by the end of the day, I think Glenn had something like 5 for 8. And I mean, he blew us away at Lord's. He always did. And to see him go off, that was, the rub of the green in big series is sometimes umpire's decisions went our way. And that was massive for us because that meant when we won at Edgbaston, an injured Glenn McGrath had to come back for Old Trafford and he was nowhere near fit.
Harmy, when we think of your 17 wickets in that series, we think of the hostile bowling, we think of Ricky Ponting and the helmet. Langer got, I think you hit him on the elbow. But also, I think about it, and I checked it yesterday, that the slower ball Yorker that got Michael Clarke out, why did you come up with that change of pace then?
Henry, I'd love to give you a reason. I'd love to give you something that I've been thinking on and working and seen a chink in Michael Clarke's armoury. The honest answer, I was absolutely knackered. I really was. I'd gone. I mean, what you have in a cricket match, you have obviously it's about a 6.5 hour day. We had fielded for the majority of that day, if not all of it. And we got Australia down to 7 wickets down or 8 wickets down. And at that point, at 6:30, you can claim an extra half an hour. The captain can say to the umpire, we think we can finish the game tonight. So Michael Vaughan asked for the extra half an hour. I think me and Freddie had been bowling for about an hour towards the end of that day. And then we had an extra half an hour to go. It was the last over of the day. I had nothing left. I was trying to get Shane Warne on strike. So I'd bowl Clarke, bounced it down the leg side to try and... So all I wanted to do was to defend it down to sort of fine leg and then get 3 or 4 balls at Shane Warne because we knew that if these two come out tomorrow morning, they've still got a great chance, even needing 100 to win. And because I had Michael Clarke on strike for the last couple of balls, I just thought, well, give it a go. And Andrew Flintoff and Marcus Shostakothic, who fielded it first and second slip, said I had the worst slower ball in the history of the game. And every time I got to the top of my sort of gather and my fingers split, they were like, oh no. And unfortunately, Michael Clarke's the only person that's never been able to pick my slower ball. So little things like that, rub of the green, work for us.
Brilliant stuff. And what you are is absolutely honest. So thank you for that, Harmy. Lovely to speak to you as always. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, good morning. Cheers, boy. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks boys. Harmy. Hello. I knew what you meant, Harmy. I knew what you meant. Steve Harmison, double Ashes winner there. Fascinating. It is 2 months away from an Ashes down under. Meanwhile, by the way, England set the 3rd highest ever T20 score on Friday night at Old Trafford against South Africa. 304 runs in 20 overs, with Phil Salt posting 141 on his return to the side. The series, by the way, is going to be decided later on this afternoon at Trent Bridge. Just a reminder for you as well, the latest interviews, analysis and commentaries. Make sure you're subscribed to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel as well. This is Sunday Edition on talkSPORT. Next up, with just 3 qualifiers to go, Henry and I are going to be picking out England squads for the World Cup.
The Lions. Real-life fantasy rugby. Bitter rivalries set aside in a quest to create the world's best team in weeks. There's nothing like it, but who on earth had the idea and how did it all begin? Incredibly, the first Lions tour was organised and funded by three men who played in England's first ever Test cricket match: opening bowler Alfred Shaw, opening batsman Arthur Shrewsbury and captain James Lillywhite. The 1888 Lions squad, then made up of 17 English, 4 Scots and 1 Welshman and a Northern Irishman, took a 46-day boat trip to New Zealand before heading to Australia. The Lions weren't alone on the boat. Also on board were 300 stoats and weasels who were brought over to eliminate New Zealand's rabbit problem. The first ever Lions captain, Robert Seddon, died of drowning midway through the tour while sculling on a river. Andrew Stoddart, who was another of the cricketers there, took over and was the star of the tour. The next one was the first to get official recognition from the RFU against the newly formed Springboks. Although the Lions won the series and beat the Boks again 5 years later, in the 12 series since in South Africa, they've only won 2. New Zealand has proved an even tougher hunting ground, just the 1 series win for the Lions in 11 attempts, which came in 1971. And then there was that nail-shredding drawn series in 2017, only the second in Lions history. Only once have the Lions clinched a series after losing the first test, 1989, when David Campese's infamous ghost pass was pounced upon by Ian Evans. Before World War II, the Lions had a dark blue strip, which on the 1930 tour forced the All Blacks to play in all white. So in 1950, the iconic red shirts, white shorts and blue and green socks combination was born. It remains the symbol of the greatest alliance of adversaries in all of sport. To borrow the phrase from Jim Telfer, the Lions is Everest.
Very good morning to you. You're listening to Sunday Edition with Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter. So much to discuss over the next hour. We're going to be joined by Dr. Aaron D'Souza, president of the Enhanced Games, as we look ahead to the controversial tournament in Las Vegas next May. We'll talk about the ongoing turmoil at Sheffield Wednesday with Dan Fudge from the Wednesday Week. And Henry and I are going to be picking our England squad for the World Cup. Before all that, though, there's just the small matter of the Manchester derby.
Welcome to Manchester. It is a rivalry that has never lacked the spice or intrigue. Ready! Drilled in by David Silva and turned in by Vincent Kompany. And it's about to heat up again. Back-to-back defeats for Pep Guardiola's side.
It's not the best situation in the start, but it's what it is.
You know, we always say it doesn't really get going so much. You've just got to be there.
You cannot leave it like a normal derby, like two great teams fighting for the title. And it's not that.
Bruno Fernandes puts the ball in the back of net. Manchester United 3, Burnley 2.
We're now talking about a football club that he's been in charge of for 10 months, and there seems to be nothing changed.
I'm pretty sure he's a very good guy. He's still a very good manager, but he's living a nightmare.
Expectations are different. The expectations and then the focus on Manchester United.
What an individual effort from Matthias Cunha!
But it's back to Haaland, point-blank range, and there he shows what a goal scorer he can be.
Fergie once went on record as saying that for Manchester Derby City would never be favourites in his lifetime. Well, that has completely turned around.
That's right, Manchester City welcome United to the Etihad today. Natalie Sawyer is going to be bringing you all the goals as they go in as part of Game Day Live. United have 4 points from their opening 3 Premier League matches, including a 3-2 win over Burnley just before the international break. And their manager, Ruben Amorim, was asked on Friday how he spent the past 2 weeks.
I did everything. I watch a lot of games. I try to understand different things. I talk with Jason. I talk with Amar, trying to anticipate scenarios. We had the market closing in this break. So I try to do everything in this kind of breaks to prepare the future. So I did everything.
You did everything. Wow, that's a packed 2 weeks. What does he mean?
Well, when you compare it with Pep, who's been to different sporting events, yeah, I mean it's good to hear. If you're a Manchester United fan, you want to hear that he is putting all the practice in. The proof will be later today.
Yeah, well, that sounds to me like you've already decided where that proof is. Is it a straightforward City win?
Nothing is straightforward, particularly with City at the moment. I still think they need Rodri fully up to speed. I think he is their most important player because the 2 players there, you know, the one who defends the back four, the one who starts move, he's a leader. They've got Haaland. We saw the form that he was in during the international break. I mean, he's a fabulous player. If you get the service into him, Oscar Bob sort of coming back in fit, and you just look at the goalkeepers. I mean, you know, Donnarumma is a serious top elite goalkeeper. 4 French titles. Champions League winner. I mean, okay, Enrique wanted to bring Chevalier in, and they wanted maybe to build out more from the back, an evolution of their already very good style. And Donnarumma surplus to requirements. I mean, I was amazed Manchester United didn't go for him or push harder to try and test the sort of the PSR sort of shaped issue at Aston Villa over Emi Martinez. But, I mean, Donnarumma, I mean, you know, you were there in 2020. I mean, he was player of the tournament, let alone, you know, breaking England's hearts in the penalty shootout, England against Italy in the Euros. He is a fabulous goalkeeper in terms of, and he's only 26.
I know,
you know,
and he's absolutely enormous. I've never. It's one of those. Oh, he's still.
Have you interviewed him, or you seen him?
No,
in the
he was
zone?
stood next to me in when I was interviewing Harry Kane after.
And Harry Kane's
defeat.
tall.
And Harry Kane is. I mean, I am short, but Donnarumma was absolutely enormous, and the intimidation that he has in goal because of that. But I'm just not sure whether he's an Edison type goalkeeper. That's the difference, which means that Manchester City are slightly going to have to adapt playing out from defence.
But maybe this shows, and we've sort of been debating managers like Ange and Russell Martin, who are very much sort of, they have their plan A and they tend to stick to it, although Ange obviously slightly changed during the Europa League. But Pep, he brings in a goalkeeper like James Trafford. You could see the sort of the evolution. He's good with his feet. And then it doesn't really work, so he immediately turns to Donnarumma. I quite like that decisive side to Pep. I mean, you feel a bit for Trafford, who will still go to the World Cup as England's number 3, but he probably thought he was returning to City to play on a regular basis. And look, he will play. There'll be enough games for him to play in. But I just think that Donnarumma is an outstanding goalkeeper, and to get him in, whatever the cost, I think it's inspired. If you're a centre half and you look over your shoulder and you see him coming to claim a ball, you get out of the way.
Yeah, well, we'll see if he starts today. It'll be fascinating. Ruben Amorim has confirmed that Buendia is going to retain his place in goal. So many question marks over the goalkeeping situation at Manchester United, and actually about the situation with many of their top players, because Bruno Fernandes is still being linked with a move away from the club.
But that's not necessarily him, though, is it?
No.
I mean, I think that whenever you hear, I'm sure you've interviewed him, whenever you hear Bruno Fernandes talk, and he could get his 100th goal for the club today, the fact that he's embedded in that club. Okay, the riches are Saudi, but it's too early for him to go. And he is, you need more players with Bruno Fernandes' heart and application in the team. I think they've got a tactical issue there. If they play him alongside Casemiro in midfield, that can be outmaneuvered. Whether you can play him as a number 10. I assume Cunha is still out. You can play him in there, which is his best position. But you just have to it's the spirit he brings. He's not a natural captain. We see him sort of moaning and whatever, but there is a sort of leadership in terms of his responsibility taking. So, yeah, he's key. So I don't know how we got onto that.
No, he's dragged. Well, it was just an evolution of what's going on behind the scenes at Manchester United, I think. And if he did go in January, what that means for them. But we'll see today.
They'd be mad to lose him.
I think so. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think he's dragged them through games, particularly last season, in what was a difficult season for them, and that is an understatement. But actually, tough start for City, 2 losses in 3 games for them. So we'll see how that plays out. You'll hear it, all the updates on Game Day Live later on this afternoon here on talkSPORT. But next up, Sheffield Wednesday fans ramping up their protests against Defon Shansiri, and we're going to be joined in the studio by Dan Fudge of the EFL Fan Network very shortly to talk all things Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday 0, Bristol City 3, and Bristol City up to third now in the Championship. Sheffield Wednesday predictably threadbare and ragged, conceding to Rob Dickey, Emil Rees and Anis Mehmeti. Hillsborough steadily emptied in the second half, much like a team running on empty, and even the protests seemed half-hearted. A football club spluttering in apathy in the charge of a man several thousand miles away in Thailand. Sheffield Wednesday 0, Bristol City 3.
This is the Sunday edition on talkSPORT. Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you until 11 o'clock this morning, and delighted to say we're joined by Dan Fudge, host of the EFL Fan Network and the Wednesday Week, to talk all things Sheffield Wednesday in what is just sad times for the club at the moment. But it feels like we're finally getting to some kind of conclusion with the owner, Chansiri. Can we just have a discussion? I just asked you off air. Can you give us, for anybody listening, watching, who doesn't know the full situation with what's going on at Hillsborough at the moment, a very truncated version of where we stand currently with the situation with Sheffield Wednesday?
It's been a long old few months. So a lot of these rumblings have been happening the last couple of years, and it all came to the fore around about January to March time, and then all of a sudden the finances and we didn't pay the players, and most importantly we didn't play the back of house team as well. So all of a sudden we realised that we were in a lot more fiduciary trouble than what we realised, and more rumours came out of more financial misgivings, and we were running the club at something like 270-something% at one point post-COVID as well. So these aren't recent issues; they've just come to light over recent times, and it's been awful. We're used to a bit of a circus at Sheffield Wednesday, but when I come on to shows like this and talk about it with other football fans and things like that, I realise that it is bad. It's really bad, and now we've got protests and different ones happening every week.
Why is it so bad? What is it that the owner has done or not done, actually, which is more to the point?
It's difficult to try and to pigeonhole certain people and things like that. But he's essentially gambled with our future. We've spent far above our means for the last decade, and it's finally caught up with us. And now we've got people working in the club shop, people working behind the bars, people working in marketing, and all these things. And they've not been paid 4 times out of the last 5 months. And the issue now the season started, you're going to have the money from the league going into the club, and now he's just got enough to bumble through now. So the protests have ramped up. They've been really, really vocal. The one in London recently that I went to last week outside the Thai embassy to try and go down a different route, to try and embarrass him into some kind of at least a statement or something, just saying, I'm halfway through selling the club, lads. Thanks for your feedback. Something like that. We've had nothing. And ironically, we were talking about it on my show last week, that we couldn't get him to shut up 6 months ago, and now all of a sudden it's completely flipped round. Now we actually want to hear from him. It's tough. It's been really tough, and as a result, I was just telling Henry off air that the atmosphere at Hillsborough is so tempered, it's so flat, and you'll get a few chants of a song that for some reason we've decided to start swearing in, and we can't say it. It can't be shared now across the network, so we're gonna have to come up with a new song. But there's an element of we sing that song for 5 minutes, and then we all sit down and just wait for our reserve team to get battered. And Bristol City were good yesterday, don't get me wrong, but they were good for about 20 minutes, and the rest of it was just a damp squib all day.
There's a lot of support for you amongst other clubs. We've seen it with Grimsby, saw it with Wrexham, obviously Bristol City, their supporters club. They were sort of liaising with you and the trust beforehand. Is that because they are concerned about issues generally in football, and it has happened to one or two of those clubs in the past, ownership issues, or do they have incredible empathy because what you're going through is a nightmare?
I think it's a bit of both. There's definitely been a really cool football family element to the to all this. I mean, Leicester City, when we came 5 minutes late, clapped us in. Wrexham, but Rob and Ryan have got a few quid to spare, right? So we've chosen black and gold as our protest colours, much like Manchester United and their Norwich scarves, that type of thing. So we've chosen black and gold, and they had a kit last year. Their third kit was black and gold. They put that back out for sale just before the game against Sheffield Wednesday, and they've donated the profits to the Supporters Trust who've been organising these protests, and it's raised nearly 40 grand.
Wow.
Brilliant. So there's going to be a lot more from the Trust. They're going to get, they've got financial backing now to go and do a lot more, which is great.
And this is where the football family comes in very, very strong, because happened at my club Luton years ago, and everybody rallied around that 30-point deduction that was absolutely horrendous, and you're thinking that your club is going out of existence. It's terrifying, because it's at the heartbeat of a community. What I find really interesting in terms of Chansiri trying to sell the club, is he actually trying to sell the club? This is the big question, because he's reportedly turned down 2 offers because it doesn't meet the valuation he thinks the club is worth, which I think is around £100 million, and it's not worth £100 million.
Yeah, that's been the issue. Chansiri is notoriously belligerent and volatile. So, for example, we'd agreed to sell Michael Smith to Wrexham back in January, and because he scored a goal, he doubled the price. And so when these people are meeting, that's just an example of what it's like. So when these people are meeting Chansiri in reference to buying the club, you could pick it up for 30, 40 million, and then we'll and all that type of thing. And then all of a sudden, it's 100 million now next week. And a lot of these high-end businessmen are going, well, I'm not dealing with this clown, I'm out of here. And that's what's happening, because he doesn't understand anybody else outside his circle. I've referred to him on my show as, if you know the Godfather movie, he's the Fredo of the family. You know what I mean? The Chansiri family have got the money, and he's the kid that whose face doesn't fit, that they've given him something to play with, and he's broken the toy.
Doesn't understand football.
Have you spoken to the regulator yet?
The regulator. So there's been the trust have reached out, and the local councillor Clive Betts, who's a big Sheffield Wednesday fan as well, has been quite vocal about the regulator. My issue is, from personal speaking, is the regulator, we will be the test case, right? We will be the emergency case. The issue is what industry across the universe has been made better by the introduction of a regulator. You know what I mean? Like we're off water. You know what I mean? But they're all about money. This is as much about emotions. I agree, and don't get me wrong, I'm probably being a bit facetious, but there's an element of Chansiri won't go down without swinging, and it will be red tape, it will be paperwork, it will be court cases. It won't just be, hey, you sell this club. It won't just do as he's told, because there is a huge element of him being quite spiteful in this. He's going to sell on his own terms, not because a group of blokes in a car park have started waving some flags around. But we're not going to stop doing it.
And what have the EFL said or not said in this circumstance? What do you want from them?
I think what's become really prevalent here is that the EFL, in terms of owners, don't have as much power as what fans would like. They've done what they can do in terms of what they're allowed to do. There's a lot of sanctions, but the issue is with the EFL sanctions that they bring in is they affect what's happening on the pitch. They affect what's happening on the they affect the fans and the football rather than the chairman itself. So we're all tending to be a little bit, well, thanks EFL for trying, but you're hurting us more,
I understand the sort of the whole back the team, not the regime. And so there is pretty much a sort of de facto boycott of actually going to the concessions and getting pints and drinks because you don't want the money to go to Chansiri. But isn't, just looking at that, and this is slightly playing devil's advocate, isn't that ultimately just going to lead to the people who are actually working behind the counters losing their jobs?
That was something I noticed yesterday. I must admit, it's been something that's weighed heavy on my mind the last couple of days, because I noticed yesterday that these areas where there'd be big long queues, that a few of the concession places were closed now. So, it was well documented last week just how little profit there is on a pint of beer now, for example. And if I put my hospitality hat on, which is my normal life, I know. And if anything, the agency staff costs have been reduced, the procurement costs have been reduced, the tax, the utilities. Not spending a pound in the ground might actually be saving him money right now. Wow. And but what we've got, I mean, that's a chat for a different day. But what we've got now is people buying sweets for their kids who don't really go to the football to be dragged into this thing, and they're getting vocal abuse from people stood near the kiosks and things like that. We don't need to go down that route just yet. I feel like the biggest test of the fans and their mettle in terms of their commitment to the cause will be when the season tickets renewals come out. And because Chansiri is Chansiri, he brings them out in the bit between Christmas and New Year when we're all skint. And he goes, here's the most expensive tickets in the league. That will be the biggest test. That will be the one when it comes.
Just finally, the one positive to take out of this season so far is the fact that you are above Sheffield United in the table. That 1 point against Wrexham has enabled that. The news out this morning, because what's been going on behind the scenes, obviously...
It's a shame. I thought Sellers was doing a great job.
I thought you were going to say something like that. You almost don't want Chris Wilder coming back, I'm assuming.
Do you know what? Look, if I put a different head on, I'd be worried as a Sheffield United fan that this club is getting nowhere fast. The players have got a lot of responsibility to shoulder that they didn't respond to Sellers because they like the blood and sweat and tears and blood and thunder way that Chris Wilder plays football. What we need to understand is that Chris Wilder in realms of modern day football is a bit of a dinosaur. And he's a bit classless as well, but that's my Sheffield Wednesday head on. But there is an element of, if we keep going back to Chris Wilder, you're going to be the championship version of Peterborough and Darren Ferguson. You're not going to move forward. And the players didn't want to move forward. They wanted to play their blood and guts and thunder because they felt that they just missed out on promotion last year. Had it not been for this 2-point deduction, we'd have done this and we'd have done that. You're not going to move forward as a football club if you keep going backwards. And the players have got a lot of responsibility to shoulder for Sellers' departure because on Friday night they were woeful against Ipswich. They were so poor. And you look at players like Gustavo Hamer, who tried to engineer himself a move out to the Netherlands, and that is not the shape of a man who is a professional footballer. He's what we used to call in Yorkshire a big stag nowadays. And we need to, we need to take a look at the players' involvement in Sellers' departure because we can all sit there and say Chris Wilder is the man, but they tend to forget that at Watford and at Middlesbrough, he was rubbish.
Interesting. Very interesting. I love listening to the EFL Fan Network, by the way, so thank you for your brilliant work on talkSPORT too.
By the way. My apologies, Peterborough fans.
Brilliant stuff, Dan Fudge there. Don't forget, you can catch Dan every Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock over on talkSPORT 2, breaking down the biggest talking points from across the EFL. There are always many. This is Sunday Edition on talkSPORT. Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you. And next, we are going to be talking all things England.
when was the last time you saw someone score with a knuckleball free kick? We're going to take a look at why we're not seeing them anymore and explain a bit about how they work. The knuckleball peaked in the 2010s after that Ronaldo strike against Portsmouth in 2008 inspired academy players everywhere. Here's a young Mason Mount.
I tried to base my free kick on Ronaldo, hit the ball by the valve and it moves. So what do you do? Top corner.
Now, no ball is perfectly aerodynamic, so as it travels it creates ever-changing pockets of turbulent air, causing that unpredictable movement. Football's most prolific free kick taker, Juninho Pernambucano, perfected the technique but didn't invent it. He was inspired by players from the 90s and even the 50s. So how do you do it? You have to hit the ball head on with as short a contact time as possible so the ball doesn't spin. Hitting by the valve helps with that short contact time as it's the hardest part of the football. So why don't we see knuckleballs much anymore? It's because players are being told not to shoot from dead ball situations because the XG is so low. In fact, as Opta shows here, since the 08-09 season there's been a 10% reduction in players shooting from free kicks in the Premier League. And in 23-24, a record low of 11 free kicks found the back of the net. And the knuckleball, though spectacular, is imprecise, which is why it's becoming a thing of the past.
A very good morning to you. This is the Sunday edition with Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter. Before we get stuck into selecting our 26 to head out to the World Cup in North America, let's find out what's happening in day 2 of the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo and speak to Michael Waydock.
Yes, good morning to you. It's been a really interesting night of action in Tokyo at the World Athletics Championships. The event everybody's been talking about, Faye, was the women's marathon. It was won by Pereship Shersha. She edged out Ethiopia's Tigst Afsafa, beating her by less than a second. In fact, it was 2/100ths of a second, a sprint finish at the end of 26.2 miles. But the big story was with the athlete who came third. Julia Pattinain crossed the line, had to check with officials that she was at the actual finish. She didn't know what position she had finished in. Now, she has won Uruguay's first ever medal of any colour at the World Athletics Championships. But the interesting thing is that Julia Pattinain is a former English schools champion. She represented Cambridge and Coleridge before switching her allegiance to Uruguay, where her family are originally from. What a terrific story. Elsewhere in the heats of the men's 1500 metres, Josh Kurt, Jake Whiteman and Neil Gourlay all qualified for the semi-finals alongside Olympic champion Cole Hocker. But Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who's been carrying an injury this season, could only finish 8th, and he is out of the 1500 metres.
Lovely. Thank you, Michael. Before you go, can I just ask you a quick question? Because obviously we heard the news this week that Olympic 50-metre freestyle silver medalist Ben Proud had joined the Enhanced Games, which are taking part in Las Vegas in May next year. We've got the president and founder of the Enhanced Games, Dr. Aaron D'Souza, on at the end of the show this morning. What do you make of that decision, and how's it going down in Tokyo amongst the athletes out there?
Well, I can tell you there's sort of been universal disgust and shock at what Ben Proud has done this week and the decision that he's made. what you have is a lot of athletes who, of course, come through the system with their national governing bodies, whether that's Aquatics GB for Ben Proud or British Athletics here at the World Athletics Championships. They all run, they all race, they all compete, coming through the ranks knowing that they should be competing clean, as it like, on a level playing field. And Ben Proud has been such a popular member of the Olympic team and the swim team as well. There was so much goodwill towards him last year in Paris because the one medal he didn't have in his collection was an Olympic medal, which he put right in Paris. And everyone used to say about Ben Proud he was the Olympian's Olympian, if you like. So that's why there's been so much shock and, as I said, disgust about the decision that he's made. From his point of view, he says that he would need to win the World Championship 13 times to earn the kind of money that he can earn at the Enhanced Games. He's at the end of his career now, and I think that sort of 3-4 day event that's being planned in Las Vegas, there'll be some running events, there'll be some swimming events, there'll be some weightlifting events in that. They're offering huge prize money, and his point is that he can make enough money in that one event to set him and his family up for the rest of their lives. So that's the debate, that's the argument, and that's both sides of it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll have that debate with Dr. Aaron D'Souza at about 9:45 this morning. Michael will be bringing you updates from the World Athletics Championships over the next couple of weeks. Right, let's talk England. Henry, shall we? Thomas Tuchel's side made it 5 qualifying wins from 5, all with clean sheets. A 1-0 home win against Andorra at Villa Park, followed by an impressive 5-0 rout over Serbia in Belgrade. And it's got everybody thinking, OK, there's one foot on the plane. When I asked Thomas Tuchel in Belgrade whether he felt like he was there, he said, yes, we have one foot, but I would like the other foot, the body and the head, additionally, on the plane. But I think it's safe to say England look like they're going to be going out to North America. So who puts their foot, body and head on that plane?
Assuming all in good form, all fit, I picked 2 11s and then obviously 4 on top of that. And just shout me down in your normal elegant style when I go through this is what I would pick. We know he's got his favourites, so Jordan Henderson and players like that, probably even Dan Burn will be on the flight. But what I would pick, very subjective. So my first 11, Pickford, England's number 1 and undoubted. I'm a huge Trent Alexander-Arnold. Amar, I'd have him at right back because I just think we need that passing strength, even though James has been outstanding. Consegay, Livramento obviously gives cover either side. I think he's outstanding. Central midfield of Anderson and Rice, Saka, Bellingham and Gordon. There's been a bit of criticism of Bellingham recently, but for me, he's a winner. He wouldn't be playing for Real Madrid at the age he is. He's 22, unless he was, he is one of the best players in the world. Obviously, Harry Kane up front. Second 11, obviously Dean Henderson. James I would have in there. Stones, who I know is going through his 30s. I know he's got his injuries, but a fit John Stones has to be there in the squad. I like the Consegay combination. I think it's good to see Tuchel building that up even more. And they both scored the other day. Terrific players. But Stones, if it's there, he's got to be in. Colwell, I mean, you're just continuing to wish him a speedy recovery because he's been outstanding for the past year. Left back Lewis Skelly. I think he's an absolute talent. Long throw on him as well. Central midfield, Gibbs and Wharton. Wharton obviously being unfortunate with injury, but what a player he is. Probably not used enough during the Euros. Then a 3 of Madueke's been outstanding on the right. Palmer. He will get into most teams as the number 10. I know he can play off the flank, but I think he's an outstanding 10. And then Gordon. I think Gordon is just such a good player on the left. Absolutely would have him. And then Watkins as the other striker, the centre forward. And then you've got effectively 3 from a long list of about sort of 15, 20. Obviously Trafford goes as the third goalkeeper. That kind of makes sense. I know Tuchel's not thinking long term because he's just here until whenever England go out next summer. And then 2 from Eze, Bowen, Rashford and Foden. I mean, Rashford, I think, will probably go because he likes
Where did you say Madueke? Have you put Madueke?
Yeah, Madueke on the right for the second leg.
Saka,
because Saka's. I know Madueke can play on the left, but I'm just sort of going with.
He made that point to me at Villa Park, by the way, when I asked him. He was very quick. When I said you're going to be competing with Bukayo Saka for club and for country, he straight away came in. I can play on both sides, and he can. He's brilliant.
How did you find him? Because I always find him. I've only spoken to him a couple of times in press conferences, but he really thinks about the question. He's quite a thoughtful character, isn't he?
Very. I love chatting to him. He was delighted the other night. Brilliant to see him get his first goal as well in Serbia. But he's been the assist machine, it feels, under Thomas Tuchel's reign, and he's really growing into this role, I feel. And Declan Rice spoke very highly about him as well, and said he was a little bit. He showed his critics, of which there were many, Arsenal fans.
It was a petition which had
is insane.
2,000 fans trying to persuade the club not to buy him. Whether that was the Chelsea connection, because he is a good player.
Of course.
Where am I wrong?
Well, there's no Adam Wharton in there.
Yes, I had Wharton in with Gibbs White in central midfield.
Oh right, sorry, I missed that. And I'm also. Bearing in mind, in the last camp, what we were talking about in terms of Miles Lewis-Skelly being England's left-back for, the future, you've put Tino Livramento there instead in that first 11. He's only played left-back in that game against Serbia in Belgrade for England. He's come on as a sub. He made his debut actually under Lee Carsley at right back in the game in the 5-0 win over Republic of Ireland. But otherwise, he's been a substitute. Came on for Reece James at right back in the game against Andorra. So, yeah, that one's a question mark for me, because I've also put to Tino before in interviews. There is a place because of Luke Shaw's fitness, who was cemented on for that. It was for a long time between Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw. Then all of a sudden, Chilwell's out of favour. Injuries helped that, but not favoured at all. Then the problems with Luke Shaw's injury. Be interesting to see whether he can play his way back into the England squad at any point. I don't think his international career is over. But Tino Livramento, I said to him when he was brought in by Lee Carsley, you have an opportunity to cement your place as left back. This is a problem position for England. And he said, I want to fight for my place at right back. That's what he said to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
he'll go because he's versatile. And we haven't even mentioned Jed Spence.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and great. I mean, the moment that Harry Kane gave him his cap, and both got emotional about that, and the journey that the journey in inverted commas that Jed Spence has been on has been absolutely fascinating. Anyway, we have got goodness knows how many more months, I can't count off the top of my head right now, until where this debate will keep coming up. We need to break because we have the president of the Enhanced Games coming up very shortly here on the Sunday edition. The controversial Enhanced Games taking place in May in Las Vegas. And the president and founder of the organisation, Dr. Aaron D'Souza, joins us next. This is the Sunday edition on talkSPORT. Faye Carruthers and Henry Winter with you. Big game live over on talkSPORT 2, a 12 o'clock kickoff between Southampton and Portsmouth. And the team news is in. Ian Abrahams.
Saints make 2 changes to the side that drew Watford last time out. Jack Stevens replaces Wood in central defence in a back 3, and Tom Fellows will make his debut after his switch from West Brom, and he replaces Jay Robinson. A debutant too for Portsmouth second time round for Connor Chaplin. He comes in for Bianchini. That's the only change to the side that beat Preston last time by a goal to nil at Fratton Park. It's live here on talkSPORT 2. It's Southampton and Portsmouth, and we start at midday.
Thank you very much, Ian Abrahams. Commentary from Nigel Adderley and former Chelsea defender Scott Minto on talkSPORT 2. Right, we are talking about the enhanced games next, taking place in Las Vegas from May the 21st until the 24th in 2026. It's the first of its kind to support the use of performance-enhancing drugs and not follow the rules of the World Anti-Doping Agency. It's fair to say it's caused its fair amount of controversy. It's been backed by a venture capital fund, which includes Donald Trump Jr. and billionaire entrepreneur Peter Thiel. Delighted to say that Dr. Aaron D'Souza, president and founder of the Enhanced Games, is with us to discuss this. How are you, Dr. Aaron? Do I call you Dr. Aaron? Is that right?
Yes, that's fine. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Okay. Can you just tell us why you came up with this idea in the first place? How did it come about?
I read a report from the World Anti-Doping Agency that suggested that 44% of elite track and field competitors have used banned performance-enhancing drugs within the last 12 months. That led me down the rabbit hole of further scientific research that indicates that the use of performance-enhancing drugs is very common among elite athletes, but also everyday people. 6% of British men have used anabolic steroids at some point in their life. And I thought to myself, why hide this fact? Let's openly celebrate scientific progress and technology. We allow technology and science in every dimension of our lives, so why don't we do it in sports?
Aaron, hi, it's Henry here. When you were at Oxford, I think you played rugby union, didn't you? There's some rather sort of impressive pictures of you in the number 14 jersey. And I think aren't you currently sort of the team's honorary chairman? And we associate...
Former honour chairman.
Yeah, well, congratulations. So, yeah, I mean, we associate Oxford and Wadham College, and, you know, their governance and regulations are pretty specific on what they want and cherish in people and students. And they say that Wadham has a cherished tradition of being at the forefront of advancing equality of opportunity. But whereas the equality of sport simply comes down to who can afford the most effective drugs?
Well, that's actually an interesting question. So the spirit of sport as a concept was invented by Baron Pierre de Coubertin in 1896, inventor of the modern Olympic Games. And from 1896 until 1992, the moral touchstone of Olympic sport was amateurism, that you had to be an amateur to compete at the Olympic Games. And now today we have basically forgotten about amateur sport because professionals are a lot better. Professionals have longer careers, they have better performance, and athletes want to be professionals. And I think the same transition is going to happen from amateur sport to professional, just like from natural to enhanced sport. Enhanced athletes are faster, they're stronger, they're going to have longer career longevity and a better economic model. Why did British Olympic silver medalist Ben Proud sign up to be competing at the Enhanced Games? Because in one weekend of competing at the Enhanced Games, he can earn 13 years of competing on the international swimming circuit.
So it's all about the money.
Well, money is a major driver, you know, and I believe that excellence deserves to be rewarded. I'm very critical of the Olympic system where the IOC president flies around the world in a private jet, literally lives in a palace, but the average Olympian in the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia earns less than $30,000 a year.
Yeah,
I believe that excellence deserves to be rewarded.
I think there would be an understanding if that was your argument and you're actually taking the fight to the IOC and actually say, and I agree with you on this, let us pay Olympians for their work. I think people would understand that. But basically what this is, I mean, enhancing is really just a very nice posh word for cheating, isn't it?
No. Cheating is breaking the rules within an existing system. So if you use performance-enhancing drugs within the Olympic system, I admit that is cheating. However, this creates an alternative platform for competition. So, Jim Thorpe, decorated Olympian, probably the greatest Olympian to ever live, was kicked out of the Olympic system for being a professional athlete in the 1940s and 50s. And the reality is that back then you had an amateur system and you had a professional system. There's a natural system today run by the International Olympic Committee, and we're creating an enhanced system, an entirely parallel sporting infrastructure where individuals are free to use performance-enhancing drugs under full clinical and scientific supervision.
What message does that give to youngsters, though?
What message does that give to youngsters? Well, technology is a part of our everyday life. So let's analogize this to Hollywood. So we recognize, particularly among the actresses out there, that cosmetic enhancement is quite normal. Kim Kardashian does Botox. She promotes it on her Instagram. We know that she's not a natural human being. She's an enhanced human. And what message does that send to our young people? It says that enhancement is a part of our everyday lives. From drinking a cup of coffee to wearing a pair of eyeglasses, we enhance our abilities and overcome our human limits. And in an era of artificial intelligence and increasing technology, us humans have to upgrade ourselves. We have to become better and we have to become stronger. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to compete with the machines.
There's an obvious risk here in the side effects of the drugs that your athletes are going to be juicing up on. Do you worry that you might be standing by the side of a pool or by the side of a track and someone is just crashes out because of what they've been putting in their system, because we simply don't know what the side effects are?
That's actually patently untrue. Drugs like anabolic steroids, testosterone, EPO are more than 100 years old. Testosterone in particular was awarded the 1936 Nobel Prize for its synthesis. And so the drug-on-drug interactions, the toxicologies, the risks are very well known and very well documented. According to Professor David Nutt at Imperial College London, androgen anabolic steroids are significantly safer than alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis, three substances that we accept in our society and we accept the risk of. And actually, alcohol is regarded as the highest risk substance, both on an individual and a societal level. Yet in established sports, particularly in the United Kingdom, alcohol is a major sponsor. And it's viewed as 10 times riskier based on peer-reviewed scientific evidence than anabolic steroids.
But we've seen with anabolic steroids the potential effects and the mood swings and the violence that it can cause in certain cases.
Yes, there's intrinsic risk in all human action. 1 out of 16 people who go to space die. 1 out of 10 people who climb Mount Everest in the early days died. Today, it's about a 1 out of 100 risk of fatality. Those are significantly higher risks than any performance-enhancing drug. Should we tell our children that we shouldn't go to space, that we shouldn't climb mountains because there is risk? I don't believe so. I believe that individuals with free and informed consent, adults, are entitled to do with their bodies what they wish. It's a very libertarian idea. I know that's controversial in the United Kingdom, but I believe that individuals have a right to their own body, and the sovereignty of our own body is our ultimate human right.
I just want to ask one final question before we let you go, Aaron. Ben Proud's decision to join the Enhanced Games, we've been told, has been met with disgust and shock from fellow athletes. What's your response to that?
2 years ago, when I started the Enhanced Games, people said you'd never sign a single athlete. Now we've signed nearly half a dozen, and we're going to announce many more over the coming weeks. And the reality is that this movement cannot be stopped. And why is the World Aquatics Federation, the International Olympic Committee, and the World Anti-Doping Agency so aghast at what we are doing? Because they know that our athletes will be faster, they will be better, and that the Olympics' only claim is that it's the ultimate avenue of human competition. Well, we've already broken the 50 freestyle world record with Christian Kolomev of Greece, and now we're going to break even more world records.
Well,
Watch
of
us
course
break
you're going to break records. They're enhanced.
Yeah.
Your athletes are taking performance-enhancing drugs. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Dr. Aaron D'Souza there, President and Founder of the Enhanced Games. Interesting, I thought, Henry, and we don't have time to dissect this now, unfortunately, but he described it as a movement, which I thought was very interesting. Many interesting points out of that interview, I felt.
It's not a movement. These are the shame games.
Interesting. It's been a pleasure to have your company this morning. As always, thank you as well for all of your company on the Sunday edition. Next, it's the warm-up with Charlie Baker and Barry Glendenning here on talkSPORT.